I'm Liz Boucher, and I'm the acting chair today for City and Community Relations Committee meeting. Since we only have 2 members here today at this time, I'd like to appoint Mr. Richards to our meeting today. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I guess.
Does that
So I don't know if I get to
Welcome,
vote
Mr.
as that.
Richards. Thank
Does
you
that
for
count?
But
being
from
here.
now on, I can vote. So thank you for appointing me.
So we at
It's
least
my
have
pleasure.
3 members here today.
All right.
All right, the first, do I have to call our meeting to order too and vote too? All right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Do I need to roll call the
You
votes
can just
for
say
this?
present.
Okay.
Who's here?
All right.
Present.
I'm here, Liz Boucher. Mr. Richards is here, and Ms. Sadowski is present,
Here.
as well as 2 members of the district. Our first item on the agenda we have listed is a memorial field project. Again, I apologize because I wasn't prepared to be to act as the chair today. Memorial field project. What do we need to discuss?
Well, I think we want, what Barb's intent was is to get an update on it from the perspective of being that it's a city Inc. school district effort, just to give an update. So let you know that we have met with the city, Steve Largy, the athletic director, Jack Dunn, our business administrator, Matthew Cashman, and Tim. Tim is like the principal at the
Principal.
high school.
Oh,
right.
Tim,
Dr.
Mr. Tim
Herbert.
Herbert.
Dr. Herbert.
Dr.
Let's
Herbert,
go,
sorry.
trying to reach for Dr. Herbert. So we all met with them to discuss the plans and moving forward. I think that it's going to be on the city council agenda for discussion. Our board has already had that discussion, so as you know, Jim Richards and Barb Higgins was appointed to a committee to meet with city council members to begin the deliberations about what this would look like. And it can go from the cost associated with it or to the timelines associated with the project. That will all be part of the discussion. The big piece is phasing, because you know there were proposals for phasing in the work. Initial phase 1 was taking care of all of the drainage, which was a huge issue, which prevented us from using the fields. But it also included the track, which there was a
And the field?
concern around the ability to use that track for another year. So, given all the problems with it, along with, I think part of phase 1 was also bleachers and lights. So phase 1 was drainage, all the fields, lights, bleachers, and the track. And then the rest of it, you know, they had other things that they wanted to do, parking and access to throughout the complex, along with a building that would house storage and also a place for restrooms and a place for food and that kind of thing, distribution when there's big games and events at the complex. So I think that's going to be a discussion between the board members and the city council.
Right, the board members who are representing us
Yeah.
with the discussion directly with city council.
I mean, I think there's a, you know, what does the, I think a big question will be, what's the impact of developing the field during the time when school district may be trying to figure out what to do with field space over at Runlet, right? Because the construction will happen on the field, so what does that mean in terms of not only the middle schools, all their athletic events, but also the high school, because they use it too. And you see them out in the summer using it in preparation for football. They don't use the memorial field because it just would take a beating. It would, you know.
And do we have a timeline for when Ms. Higgins and Mr. Richards are
I
going
don't
to be
have
meeting
that
with
yet.
city council?
I don't have that yet. I think they'll, once the city council discusses it, I think then we will see I'll get more information to have that timeline and when they will start to meet.
And they're planning to discuss that at their February meeting?
I
don't know.
hope so.
Okay, all right, we hope so.
I don't know if there's any other questions on that project. They have estimates, they have proposals, they've done all that. It's, the next step is the city's position on it too.
Mhm.
There's been some discussion about the percentage of what the city would pay and what the school district would pay, given the size of the project. So I think that has to be a point of discussion for that committee.
Okay.
I think once the committee makes some recommendations, I think they'll open it up again for
Mhm.
another hearing. I do think that we'll hear again from those folks.
So it's good that Mr. Richards is here tonight then.
Yeah.
Mr. Richards,
Perhaps that's not a coincidence, but okay.
is there anything that board members or this committee can do to support you in preparing for potential negotiations with the city?
No, I think if we're going to have negotiations, we'll be updating the board regularly because it'll take the whole board to make that decision. I think having as much information from the city with regards to proposals, phasing, timing, will probably be the biggest thing. And I was at both of the public hearings so far. There is, significant support for the entire project. And, I'll update you as I get more information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Just a side note, we often hear, have you talked to the students? And we did. We went and did a focus group with the students at the middle school as well as with the high school students, and had great representation and terrific discussion. And those notes are all part of what's on the website under the Memorial Field Project. So I think you'll see that. If anybody's interested in learning a little bit more about the project, there's good diagrams and graphics that will give you an idea about the project.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Everyone can get involved in the early stages and
Right.
continue to follow it on the SAU
Right.
website.
Right, so I would just strongly urge people to look at that and to learn more about the project if they haven't had a chance to really understand what was being asked for.
Okay.
The one point of discussion that is really still out there is whether or not we include one or more turf fields. Everybody has a opinion on that particular item, but that's something I think that's still outstanding. Certain sports and the one I know in particular is girls field hockey really need a turf field because it affects not only the play of the game, but also the individual athletes as well. So that'll be something that the more you want to brush up on or ask about, the more we'll be informed when we have to make that decision, or at least contribute to making that decision.
And we're seeing more and more turf fields, and there's new science around the materials that are used. Way back they were concerned about them, but as we heard from some of the folks, they have new materials that won't affect the health of the youngsters. But that has to be presented to the community so they understand it. But most of the fields that I've been attending are big Class L, Class I, which is Concord, large schools. They're all using turf fields. And again, it gives them more time on the fields. Kids get out earlier, and can use it more year round than a regular grass field. Although this year, not much snow to worry about.
Right, and certainly comparing costs between turf versus the irrigation systems and everything that's necessary to upkeep standard fields.
But you do need to replace it. I think we saw that in Nashua. They needed to replace the turf field at Stello Stadium. And it does does wear down. And in Nashua, they use it for football and lacrosse and soccer. So just imagine how much that field is used by both Nashua North, Nashua South, big games. So I think there is a replacement cost too that you have to really absorb at some point.
One of the things that we haven't discussed, and I don't know if the city has discussed, is that there are other high schools in our area that may use that field and would be interested in, participating as well. Bishop Brady comes to mind right off the bat. I don't know, if there's anyone else, but that's something we need to be open to as we move forward.
Well,
Because that would share costs.
Large statewide competitions
And
might bring in revenue.
The opportunity to host large competitions in a variety of sports, so many sports, is certainly an opportunity that we don't have now that would be possible with a turf field that could accommodate, that many fans and teams.
Right, as I visited Fields, Exeter, Bedford, the Class L, the large schools all, went with the turf field for that very reason. But I think the community deserves to hear more about the synthetic quality of that field to allay fears around whether it's safe for kids.
Right.
And the environmental impact.
The environmental impact, yes.
Right, and the risk for injury too.
The risk for injury is one that I think we need to all look into. One of the points that is brought out is that injury can occur more with speed and much faster than our students go. In other words, it tends to be more of a risk for college. For high school, I don't know all of the science behind that and all of the studies behind that, but that's something we'll look into because, of course, the safety of the students is paramount with everything that we do. So we do want to consider that as well. So lots to talk about.
All right.
If that's it, I'm gonna move on to the next.
Hey, welcome.
Jess, join us.
Please.
Which committee is this?
Yes, this is city and community.
Your committee. Come on
This-
in.
Community?
Yes.
Come
This
on.
is city.
You're on, just sit down.
You're on
I'm
camera.
chairing. You're on camera. Next
Welcome.
topic of
didn't-
discussion, if we don't have anything on Memorial Field, I'm just gonna move on to setting up meetings with City of Concord and the Board of Education. We're looking for a fall meeting that we're,
Well, we're actually looking for a meeting coming up, spring, because we had one in
Spring.
the fall, what was in June,
I
right?
guess it
Last
was
June, and
last
then we
June.
said we wanted to have another one, so we decided to wait till after the new year. So I'm working with the city manager to come up with a date, and we'll have folks attend that. I think the school board has all joined it, but in the city, they have appointed people to that committee. So that's something that you might want to talk about.
whether or not just city and community members attend
Yeah,
that.
right.
Yeah.
That's how it started out with just city, at least that's my experience from when I started here. And Dave Parker was doing that work, and it was the City and Community Relations Committee that met with the city council, whoever was appointed by the mayor.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm for that, if just the city and community members, but I would encourage Mr. Richards to also join if he is gonna be sitting on the Memorial Field subcommittee with the city, so that if, I assume Memorial Field may be discussed in this, that he is able to hear and to speak.
So we talked about agenda items. It is
Yeah.
the city's meeting. They're hosting this time. We hosted the last time. But we certainly wanted to be able to discuss some things that are important to us. I thought it was important for us to share our capital improvement plan. That 10-year plan that Matt has developed. I think the city needs to know what our big ticket items are.
I agree.
What else would you like me to, as we develop an agenda?
Do we wanna talk about street crossings at that time, or is that
I would love to.
to be discussed at a different, earlier? I mean, hopefully sooner rather than later, but that might be where things culminate.
Street crossings and traffic in general at our elementary schools, since we've always been cooperative with the police department and the city and probably is something that could be on this. And then does the city is starting their equity group, and I didn't know if we are participating in that. We have sat in on some of their, public meetings, but I don't know if that falls under this committee or not. And since I'm not really on this committee, it's all up to you.
Kara's on it, yeah. So Kara's actively engaged and on it and on that committee. Yep.
So that would be a good update from them around
Mhm.
their equity committee. Is that what you're thinking? Okay.
Mhm.
I'd also like to see a question of how they'd like to see the process of us collaborating moving forward. I feel like I've heard a lot from certain city councilors that they would like to see more communication between the two entities. Is that representative of how the whole body feels? And if so, what measures could we put in place? Asking them, like, how is communication going from your end? What would you like to see moving forward? And kind of manifesting what that collaboration might look like if we were to come to closer partnership, particularly around planning. What do folks think?
We did briefly mention it at the end of the last meeting too. I think the counselor said, or the counselor that believes that we don't have the communication wasn't at that meeting. But we did open it up for discussion. We certainly can and continue, but I remember the end of last time we met with them, we were like, if there's any way in communication we're open. I think for the most part we do. It's unfortunately, we have one counselor.
Excellent. All right.
But that's also not to negate, it's important, I think,
Yeah.
especially at this meeting, to let the public know that there are discussions happening in the background between city
Yes.
officials as well as school district officials for whatever project's going on, right? These are
Yes.
not decisions made just between
Okay.
board members and city councilors. So if, I do agree with you, I do agree that if if city councilors or school board members don't feel that there's enough communication on topics, how might we interact just between us?
Right.
So maybe give an example, such as, right, so we hear a lot that we're not talking to the gentleman from Parks and Recreation or on Memorial Field. Maybe we directly ask, be like, hey, we do get this feedback, we are hearing it, how do you think we should work together? Because we know that we're talking, but how should we communicate this to the broader audience? Just so we make that statement we know, because
Right, is the current level of collaboration working for that?
Right.
Like, how would we like to address the process of working together on capital improvements in the future?
that's fair.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
I think for all of us, we sometimes take it for granted. We meet with the city manager and their BA and the deputy city manager. We meet with the folks at the Public Works building all the time, right? But we just kind of take that for granted as we report out to you about the progress on things.
Yeah.
But it doesn't show out there as, being effective with
Right.
collaboration. So,
Right.
Well, I'll also point out that I know that the mayor, as well as the board president, meet regularly and have over the last several years. At least I know when I was the board president, that was in effect, and I'm fairly confident or fairly certain that that's in effect right now. And then, if we want to change that and expand that, that's great. Sometimes the city is a lot more tight on who's on committees and who's doing interaction than we are. We tend to be, I come in and sit at this committee meeting, so for example.
We're glad you're here.
Yeah.
So we just need to reach out and discuss it with them, so it works for them.
So far, I'm hearing things like Memorial Field, of course, right? Because that's a big project. Then street crossings, traffic, equity committee update, and collaboration on topics.
Our capital improvement plan.
Yeah, and our capital improvement plan. Yep,
That's such a good idea.
that's probably
Yep,
plenty.
that's more
'cause
than
it's-
Yes, because
Yeah,
they may have some
they are
things
going
too.
to have
yeah.
some. Tom will definitely have some things that he wants to share, and certainly as the year unfolds, and hopefully we'll have another one later on in the year so that we can discuss impact of taxes, all of that, the assessments, the assessed value, all the things that really affect everyone's pocketbook.
That. And then another topic that I think probably is one we should speak together on, because we both deal with it, and it's very acute at this time of year, is homelessness and how unhoused people and unhoused families, because we have, a significant, concerning amount of students that are unhoused at this point. And we deal with that on a daily basis, and I know that they deal with it on a daily basis. So any way we can coordinate, I think, would do our community a lot of service.
I agree.
I think it's also important to make sure that the counselors know our duties to educating those who are unhoused as well.
Yeah.
That, what are our responsibilities and what we have to do if there's no housing here in the city.
Right, but you do know that our departments work again with the city. I mean, the city has a social worker now with the police department. She's meeting with folks here. I know that Erin Care, who does all the homeless services, and she's meeting regularly, keeping everybody up to date. So, but it's those behind the scenes things that happen we take
Correct.
for
Those-
granted,
exactly.
right?
They're happening.
You guys-
They have to
You
happen.
expect us to
Yeah.
do that, right?
Mhm.
But the general public doesn't always know that.
And the counselors may not either,
Yes.
Yeah.
right? Like, I didn't know all
You're
of
right.
this until I sat on the school board. I
Right.
didn't realize all the
Right.
laws and regulations and policies that require the school district to operate in certain
Right.
fashion. And the same goes for the city. There's things I'm sure that the city councilors know that we don't know, but it might be valuable for us to know.
Yeah, I
too.
mean, just the simple fact of meeting with Mr. Gill over at Parks and Recreation, of course we did, and he knows exactly what our needs are, and we've met with him, and obviously the Memorial Field we shared the discussions with, but also the middle school project. So it just, that's not something that we just generally advertise or put out there.
Right.
I try to keep you posted on that when I do my
you do a great
Friday
job.
meetings, my Friday notes. So you know at least during the week what we may have been involved in. And I try to remind folks, like Terry's doing a school choice workshop on Saturday. I said, make sure you let me know about it so I can write it up so our board knows. But I don't know as everybody knows out in the
Well, it's
community.
also our responsibility too of how we communicate with
Yeah.
constituents too.
Right.
Whether there's people who follow our own social media pages, it's important to get it out there.
Yeah.
And Terry, if there's anything that you think would be helpful for us to communicate to the public on an individual basis, certainly I welcome that.
One thing that I've been testing internally is I've been doing kind of a one-page summary of school board meetings,
Oh,
calling it
nice.
school
I
board
love
notes,
that.
and sending it just to staff. I've been doing it for a few months now, and it's literally bullets. But in case, if a great example was the robotics, 8th grade robotics presented, the video is linked, the meeting minutes are just pointed to that page. And so starting this month, I'm going to share it through Parent Square. I'm going to do, Parent Square has the opportunity to do groups that are open to the public.
Yeah,
So
great.
create one called School Board Notes, so anybody in the community can sign up for it. And then we'll also put that on the website. One of the things that's changing with communication standards kind of is to focus your resources on things that you can control.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, our social media platforms keep changing their rules, like,
Right.
by month, and if you don't have a certain number of followers or whatever, it's a lot of resource. Our website we can control. So if we can have that be kind of a resource of
Okay.
record, like we've done with the middle school,
Yeah.
but we'll work on more and more of that, and so post that note section. I wanted to make sure that I could commit to doing that, before I started, because I do think that the feedback has been good. The people who want it really like it, and then the rest of the people, they just delete it. But that's fine. That's fine.
Right, and that's also, anyone in Parent Square has students in the district or staff can access that, but it's
So
also
what I'm
some
gonna-
community broader community members, which I tried to share, at least for mine, is to copy and paste what comes out in Parent Square and put it on my social media so that the broader public can see.
So for this, I'm going to send it to all parents once. Because we don't, as Kathleen knows, I feel like we might send a lot of information to our parents. And I'm constantly requesting that people streamline, and we don't want to overwhelm people with emails. So we'll give everybody the opportunity, here's the link to sign up, but it won't be sent to them if they don't sign up for that community group.
Yeah.
You know, we can send reminders
Yeah.
in other emails, but they're gonna only get it that one time. Yeah, but everybody will be invited. It's totally open to the public.
That's great.
Okay. Anyone else have anything else for the agenda?
I think we have plenty.
I think a celebration for the event earlier this morning, wonderful event.
That was
Family
great.
Center, it was great to see.
Thank you.
And great to have the school represented, and yeah, fabulous time, so,
Congratulations to the Family Center
exactly, well
for
done.
Monday opening. It's wonderful.
I just love it, you know, I always feel like when you can bring the work to the families where they live, in their community, you know, it's just like, it's like having a little mom and pop store in your neighborhood, right? It's that same thing, you know, and not everybody loves going to the school. Sometimes going to school is intimidating for families, right? We've heard from some families, I think Jim shared that sometimes families didn't come to our meetings because maybe they have a hard time with the communication piece, you know, and they don't. So it's nice when you can bring things to them. I think it's fabulous. I hope we see more of this in the community. I know John and John and Jack was here, are looking at something up on Loudon Road. Right, John, wasn't that? Yeah, and they've been up there looking at some property again because, you know, bring what we do out to the community. I think it's pretty powerful.
And not only bring it to the community, but in that location, Concord Housing has a designated staff person who will be in the building helping families connect to resources, as well as the Family Center Market, which was a former food pantry, now renamed, which will also be in that location, and there'll be a diaper pantry satellite location there as well.
Right.
So it's not just the Family Center, but those families, as well as the broader community, will be able to access all sorts of resources.
Right, I think it's awesome. We're gonna send a couple folks down. Manchester, as you know, opened up a community center in their community with lots of services, very similar to that, in addition to, you know, translators and that. So we have some folks going down to visit, kind of get a sense of it, what it looks like. I think they got a major grant to be able to do that. No reason why we can't do that. And
Through the school district?
excuse
Through
me.
the school district in Manchester?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, you know,
That's-
they're
I
pretty
mean,
proud
yeah.
of it, and I think it's, again, a great service to our community.
Yeah.
And once again, something you can put on your list to talk with the city.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to start prioritizing your lists.
I guess so. Our strategic plan, we can put it on that.
The one thing I just remembered from our retreat is that this is somewhat instructional, but there was wasn't there a discussion about Power School videos of how to use, was it Power School?
Is
How to
more-
use
more-
videos?
Schoology.
Schoology,
Yeah.
okay, Schoology. Use videos, but we could also, I feel like some of that's city and community because it's how people access information on the website, so something we could control is not just Schoology, but there could be other videos of a how-to, or other information that we have that city and community could put forward.
Actually, that reminds me, I've been carrying this for months. We may already do this. Took it from a district in Maine. They have, every school has a language bank card. Do we have this? Yeah? No, so every administrator, like tons of people have it, and there's bigger ones in person. Can some just find in their own language? And there's a language line interpreters on the spot for them.
Well, we
Um,
use Language Line. The
we
district
do, right?
uses Language Line.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have those specific cards.
And it was
but
great.
they all have
They're
their own access
everywhere.
code. They all
Yeah.
have their own access code.
Okay.
You're saying for the staff of the district.
And for like parents, so if a parent went into a principal's office, the card is there, or they went to the front office of the school, it's right there in the the languages, so they can read
Oh,
it in
yeah,
their own languages.
that's
and
interesting. I
know
wonder
who to
if like
call
in the
for help.
principal's
I
offices,
feel like we do.
We must.
because
Well,
healthcare
we do
facilities
language
need
line,
to.
I mean,
I believe we have a card. It's not this pretty. This is
Yeah.
this is really nice. But yeah, it is.
And they're
It's
posted
something we're
everywhere.
working towards.
But for
is this
accessibility
an extra,
purposes.
Jess?
You can have it. Yeah, I get one.
But for accessibility, there should be posters, when
Yeah.
you walk into the front office that show language line in different languages.
And it's pretty
I don't
consistent.
know if
Every
that's-
time I go into an administrative building, like it's right there front and center, so as soon as somebody walks in, it has all the different languages and they could just read it in their language and dial, which has been nice.
Anything else? Are we missing anything that we had discussed? So I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved, motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you,
Awesome.
Jim. I'm so
Awesome.
Okay,
sorry.
meeting adjourned.
I was like, what is
I had to jump
happening
in,
right
I
now?
didn't,